maybe retire early. So
I love that. And I call that the like the freedom. So you're saying belief, the stability that was giving you to know, like, I'm taking care of things. This is all going to pan out. I call it like freedom. Like it's the fuck you money, right? Like I don't have to work for anybody I don't want to, because I've got rental properties. Like, and it doesn't mean that like my life wouldn't be harder if I lost a stream of income, but it means I have a little bit of flexibility to figure it out. It's not like I'm paycheck to paycheck, right? And neither are my clients. These properties give them grace to keep things even. Ms. Lopez, did we drag you out of bed on this Christmas Eve morning?
No, I just had to fix my hair a little bit. So I was like, hey, Joel betrayed the whole team and didn't show up. And so whatever are we going to do? And I was like, try to not at least look like a psychopath. I'll make sure that I can cover for Joel. And then Joel was like, I'm here. I made it.
Well, are we forgetting somebody else?
Yeah.
Who's yeah,
Lauren's not here.
But Lauren there was a storm wherever she's at, so they didn't have power. So
excused absence.
Yes. And Joel just apparently had to find a shirt. Everyone is saying in the chat he needed to find a red shirt. So I reached out to Emily because Emily said you're her spirit animal, Jen. So I said, you know what? If Emily wants to jump on, and she's, but she said, I look. What did you say? I look not terrible, but you said,
stop.
I just wasn't prepared to be on camera. He's like, are you available? I was like, for what? Like for a phone call? Sure. So no, Joel, I'm messing with you just because everyone else was, so I had to jump on the bandwagon.
But thanks for joining.
Yeah, because I don't see the chat right now because I'm streaming on my phone here, so I don't see the chat.
I like those cabinets; those are nice behind you. Yeah, I'm always like looking at people's backgrounds. Like sometimes I'll save pictures, and Dallas is like, "Why did you save that?" I'm like, "I like those cabinets in the background. It's like an influencer's makeup video, but like I like their cabinet out or something."
And here's some maybe you have to ask Alex, the accidental investor, for some catchphrases, Jen. But he's talking about making some shirts for the Vegas event. Buying hoes don't give a shit. My buy box is, and I'm not angry. Just in the 5 years of suck. Yeah. So kind of in our community, and you did talk to Michael Zuber recently, and a lot of it is the first 5 years is terrible in a sense. Real estate investing, and you have to get over that hump. So when you talk to new landlords or new investors, is that something you kind of have to discuss with them and make them realize that 5 years is kind of a struggle?
Yeah. A new investor coming to me, they often are talking about how they're evaluating assets, right? And they talk about cash flow. And I ask them, I'm like, are you talking about cash flow because you're expecting the $200 a month check and you want to pay your Netflix bill or whatever with it? And of course, if the answer to that is yes, I'm sorry, I can't work with you. And I'll give you a reason. But if you're like, no, it's not about that, I'm going to go, okay. So cash flow is a general thing. And since I'm going to guess we're all on the other side of the 5 years of suck, like we're all on that point where we get it. I always say to them, the last day you put money into that property is not on closing day. It is not with the things you've imagined. It's not anywhere close. So get used to keep putting money in the property, and it is going to give you money much more reliably after 5 or so years. And depending on how you have it financed, maybe a little longer, but operationally, and the larger the property, the longer the stabilization, right? The smaller the property, less units, the shorter the stabilization. And I need them. And I've been hearing, tell me if you've heard from any of these guys, 3 different guys, software guys. So they work in IT or whatever this year. They make about $100,000 a year. They come to me mid-career with their $500,000 401ks and say, AI is going to have my job in 3 years. I need you to turn this into a salary replacement for me. And they've just done the math. 20% cash on cash, $500,000 leveraged at 80-20. I should be able to replace $100,000 salary. And then I sit there, a cheeky little broad, and go, oh, okay, Derek, like, no, thank you. And they're like, whoa, I'm going to buy all these properties and you're going to work with them. And I go, no, because here's the thing. You and your family are going to want to go to the grocery store. And someday I'm not going to be able to send you the check because this is a flawed plan. And I said, but if you needed those properties in 20 years, this is a great plan. But the fact that you need them in 3 to fully support you, it is a bad plan. Now, listen, They often don't call back. It's not like they call back and have me nurse them through it because I've hurt their egos, but I better that because listen, I'm in it with them. I'm not a transaction girl. I don't make a big fat check when you make a decision and sign a loan doc. I make little bits of money right along with you, Mr. Investor. And when I take on your property, you should go, oh, this expert believes in me and this property. I should have some optimism. And when I say no thanks, you should think that means danger for your plan. Oh, poor Derek. Yeah.
I want him to be named Chad.
Yeah, he might have been.
Emily, you got anything for Jen? Or
I love that kid. That kid is elf on the shelving.
Yes.
Just screenshot of that and put him on a t-shirt.
Yes.
He's like, I'm going to put this kid on a high up shelf he can't get off of.
So Jen, a lot of in our community too, it's kind of, I don't want to say frowned upon, but it's being promoted to try and self-manage because,
because managers are horrible.
Yes. So
no, I get it. I know. No, I heard.
So how would you try to not convince someone that, you can take a lot off their plate by using a property manager, right? Or how can they find a vet one, or how can they become better even at self-managing? I don't know if that's advice you can give.
That's a lot, right? It has a lot to do with what your goals are and what you're coming to the table with. If you're a doctor full-time who wants to build like some tax optimized assets to like balance out your portfolio, you ain't it. You're not going to self-manage. You're never going to be able to do a good job that isn't going to work for you. If you're an artist type who likes to flit around and and that's your jam, don't self-manage your properties. Now, if you like systems, if you like processes, if you're fine with taking a class and learning something, if you're fine with asking a lot of questions and doing the research, well, then maybe you're a contender to be a self-manager. For those people who are like, God, I need to have a manager, find the manager before you commit to the property. Now, if you're completely new in this, you're going to be going on recommendations from others. You're going to be going to meetups. You're going to be meeting people. The work is in the connecting and the networking. Like a lot of the work of real estate is in the information sharing and all of that. So we're going to try to find a good manager that way. Otherwise, what am I doing about it? I'm trying to raise the level of the industry. I am a great manager. And people say to me all the time, Joel's kids are in the 5 years. He's in the 5 years of suck, I think. I'm kidding you. I'm not irritated. I'm really just pointing a little fun. This is why we do it. So we can have little monsters like that running around.
Right.
That's why we do all this. And there'll be little rich kids one day, because
Someday.
we're in these calls, right?
That's right.
I'm raising the level of the industry. So I try to be really public about what a good manager is and isn't. I'm trying to change the laws here in Pennsylvania. But listen, we're just like realtors. 5 to 15% of us are providing value commensurate with the fees that we charge. And the rest are a value suck. And as our industry figures this out, I would like the industry to deal with this versus the consumer. I think we owe it to consumers to be better. So can I tell you about the keynote I'm writing for this event in January and my big idea?
Absolutely.
I'm going to read it off the giant post-it that's on my wall. The real estate industry is preying on our clients, which are buy and hold investors because we're property managers. And we, property managers, need to stand up and stop them. Join my army and stop. I'm railing against real estate professionals who are not long-term focused in the advocacy for their clients, and real estate influencers, right? Like people who are out there making their money on views, stirring up controversy, selling all kinds of messages. I'm looking for depth of expertise and values alignment with buy and hold investors and what's out there for them. Too much of what's out there. If I'm Jen and I'm like a dental hygienist and I watch Financial Firefighter and I listen to Hold It with PM Jen and I go, you know what? 26 is the year. And I start Googling, like, how do I learn more about this? Because I'm education based. What am I going to find? I'm going to find a bunch of people selling get rich quick, use other people's money, get to this much so you can check out. There's not this reasonable like I still want to go to work every day, but I do want to have this return on my money. I want to have my money work for me. I want to have it be closer than, say, the stock market. There's a lot of people out there who feel like that, who want it in their communities.
I just want to clarify that I did not kick Joe off the stream. He jumped off on his own choice because he said he didn't want to distract all this great information. So it wasn't me kicking him off the stream, just to let everyone know. But Hyder is saying Jen needs her own clothing line. We can market it for her.
Isn't that cute? So just sayings on t-shirts?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Emily
Holders don't give a shit.
Yeah,
That's I
Emily
would
can have
short
one
it
too,
to
though.
holders don't give a shit. How much is my property worth? Holders don't care. Like, I only care if I need to borrow money or I want to fight a tax assessment or something.
Well, and like you said earlier, before I was on, when I was listening, your imaginary number, I loved that, because I feel like people that own a property, or even people selling a property, people like, they'll be like, but we started at this and we're giving them this much off. No, you're not, because that's what you wanted. That's not market value. The market will dictate. Even a house for sale with an appraisal. I've had houses appraised up here, but the market says, and buyers in the market say, yeah, maybe it's worth that, but the market number is different. And so I love it is an imaginary number. If it's been on for 3 months or 6 months, you're not giving them a discount. The market dictated for you. So like, I think that's so hard for property owners to realize, or for property sellers to realize. It's this number you made up in your head to start with.
The mental gymnastics of pricing real estate. You're an active agent, right, Mark?
Yeah.
Emily's an active agent. I am just by name an agent.
Oh, you're not actively representing clients.
Yeah,
Okay.
Emily is. Emily's a rock star.
Are you? You're doing transactions?
Yeah, I own a brokerage, and I still sell. I mean, I think I only did like 28, 30 houses this year, but yeah.
Yeah. So then you're much closer to this. I've never sold a house.
Okay.
Professionally for anybody. So yeah, like this exercise, talk to me about that. I'm just a regular person. I own this rental property. Maybe I inherited it, right? And you and I talked about it and we thought, you know what? It's really worth $500,000, right? And we price it there. And then you're right. The market comes back and actually 450 is where this thing's going to trade with a ready, willing, and able buyer. How do you prep them for that? Like, do you start at the beginning, or are you just, how does that work?
So I do. I think I kind of, like you said, where I renamed him Chad. I can't remember what his name was at birth, but didn't come back to you. People don't necessarily like information. So I find that some people will list with the realtor that lies to them, unfortunately. And I always tell people, just because a realtor says to list your house here, it doesn't mean it's going to sell there. And it's like people pick the person that gives them the highest number. So I have an honest conversation, and I always tell people, here's all the data. Here are the comps that are active, because that's your competition, and that have sold in the last 6 months, because that's what an appraiser is going to look at. However, in our market, we are declining. And so the last 6 months are probably a shinier sunshine than what we are walking into. And a couple of years ago, the last 6 months, we could stair step and go a little bit above that and try to test the waters. Now we can't, because it's just going to sit. Also, average days on the market, we have all this data. It is not like I'm just pulling this number out of my back pocket. And so I give them the data, but I tell them, because they're like, so-and-so said this, or I really want this. And I just say, I'm giving you a realistic snapshot of the data. Everyone always thinks they're going to be the unicorn. Some people are realistic, but a lot of people, for some reason, think even if their neighbor's property that was the exact same thing sold for this much, somehow theirs is going to sell for 30,000 more. I don't know why, but there's a special because their paint is gray or something. And so a lot of times you give someone all the data and then they ignore it and they pick a price that's based on their emotions, not based on the market or the data. And then the house sits and sits and sits and sits, becomes a stagnant property, and then they get less than if they would have priced it appropriately. I also tell people, if you price it right, you don't have to they're like, well, someone's going to offer lower. you don't have to accept it. You can tell people we've priced it appropriately for the market and we are not going to play around. And so I give people information because sometimes they have to go higher because they just bought it. They don't have a lot of equity. And I'm honest with them up front. Here's the data we can try. Maybe if you don't sell it, you rent it or you do something different. But some people have the equity and they just want something that's not realistic for the market. But if you prepare them from the beginning, when they come back to you and they go, why is my house not selling? It's not, hey, I gave you a BS story about pricing because I wanted the listing. It's we had this honest conversation from the beginning and it's not priced appropriately. And that's why it's not selling, because here's all the things we're doing for marketing. We're advertising. We did professional photo. We did aerial photo. We did professional video. We have advertisement running every month on your property on Facebook and Instagram ads. Obviously it's on all the, websites because it goes through the internet data exchange. So if it's not going, it's price. And so if you're honest from the beginning, now if I lied and puffed up a property to my clients, then I have to have a different conversation and that's kind of on me. I've also had properties that are so weird because sometimes you have a really unique property that it's hard to find comps for. And I ask them to have an appraisal. I will never tell you something I don't know. And sometimes I'm not comfortable comping a property. And so then we go, okay, just because it appraised here doesn't mean it will sell there, but we can either tell people we have this appraisal or at least you have that information in kind of the back of your mind. But yeah, a lot of times you give everyone all the information and they go list it with the person that lists it at a number that's crazy, not realistic. And it just sits and sits and sits and sits and sits.
Right. Yeah. And so an experience I had, again, never sold a house. When I came to this market, we had oil and gas activity, which drove numbers up, brought people in. And then when people left, this was 2012, 13, 14. So it wasn't like they were underwater because of their loan or anything. This was a market condition and it wasn't too dramatic, but it was a little off. So I would get these calls from people like they moved states away for their job opportunity or whatever. They left their single family house here and they'd had it on the market 6 months, 12 months, didn't sell. And I walk into a dirty house with deferred maintenance and all this stuff, right? And there's only like 2 or 3 property managers in town and I'm really the only one. The others are just realtors who do this on the side. They don't really want to do it, right? It's certainly not one house for like an accidental investor. They don't want to do that. So I go in and I rip and tear and go, okay, if you want me to manage this, I can get this much for the rent, but you're going to have to do 10 grand worth of work, right? It adds up, little, paint and a piece of carpet and just, it adds up. And they would be so willing to pay me to do that. And I would stop them and go, listen, the truth is, I know you want to sell this house. The truth is, if I do this $10,000 worth of work, you hire an agent who knows how to market this. It's priced appropriately. It'll sell. It'll sell. You've been putting a turd on the market. You've been far away, lazy agent, whatever. And they go, yeah, but I'll hold on to it and I'll rent it. And I say, why? And they'll go, well, we like working with you. And I say, but I'm not going to sell it for you. They say, nobody told us the truth. They say, why do you think our realtor didn't tell us this? And I said, probably because in my board, there's 280 other realtors who are ready to take that call and say that it looks great and is fine, that your number is fine, that green paint is fine, that all of it's fine. And I say, but I'm one property manager who isn't going to make a big check. I need this thing to perform over time and I don't waste time. So if you're not going to do the work, you can do whatever you want with your house. I don't care. So you got honesty from me because there isn't a proliferation of people who are willing to tell you whatever you want to get you to sign that contract. And that's an issue with our industry.
And I think realtors are scared. They're afraid to be honest because so many people get mad. And I kind of always ask people, do you want to are we selling this as is? Are we saying we're selling it, but we'll do lender required repairs? Or do we really want to zhuzh this up as much as we can to, because some people just won't do anything. And that's the thing too, is a lot of times you tell people and people have this kind of like, oh, it's a couple little things. Like you said, it adds up. It's not that much. And what I always tell sellers is if it feels overwhelming to you, it's absolutely overwhelming to the buyers. And so all these little projects that you haven't been able to get to over the last 3 to 5 years, they're adding up in their mind, and that's what's making them move on to the next house. And sellers don't want to hear that. It's crazy to me, the prices that sellers will put on houses and the condition. I mean, not even clean. Like you said, it's not even cleaned, and you're getting professional photography done, or you have stuff all over your counters or whatever. Like, yes, everyone has their toaster on their counter. Everybody has their coffee pot on their counter. But when you go to list your house, take it off. Or, you know, the people that your makeup brushes and their hairspray, it's always on your vanity in your bathroom. But you know what? When you list your house, it's not, because it feels cluttered and everyone knows they're going to live that way, but they don't want to tour homes that way. And I just find that sellers a lot of times are so overwhelmed. Even if you give them the information, they won't or can't make themselves do it. But then your price has to reflect it, because we are not in a seller's market anymore. So 3 years ago, you could list anything like that. I mean, I've been in houses where there is dirty underwear on the floor. I have been in houses where, I mean, just crazy. And they go because of the market. Today, it's not that market, and you have to eliminate all those objections.
You have to. I have an idea for real estate agents that I came up with when I was on a showing with an agent the other day. He has an Airbnb, and he talked about how he tries to advise families, particularly families with young children, go stay at your mom and dad's house or whatever, so I can book showings like crazy. Like, I can get great pics. I can show this place like a showpiece and just show the fuck out of it. And then hopefully we have a deal and you come back. And I was like, why don't you just use your Airbnb for that? Why don't you put it on? And you can do it in a million different ways, but family, get out, go to my Airbnb for 10 nights. And hopefully you don't have to stay the whole 10 nights. We have a deal, but that gives me the best opportunity. The lack of, I would say, discipline and professionalism in listings is really hard. I went and saw a 2-unit, gorgeous 2-unit, 400,000, dead cat in the garage. And the place was filthy. Like, I didn't want to touch the doorknobs. Now, could you take a picture of it and make it look fine? Of course. There wasn't trash everywhere, but it was dirty. And they just had a price reduction.
But some people won't listen to you. So that's the hard thing, is everyone has different. Have you ever been to someone's house and they're like, I cleaned for you? And you're like, you did? What did it look like before? So that's really hard when they don't have when you're like, when you come in, you're like, okay, I really think we should have this professionally cleaned. And like, we just cleaned it. So subjectivity is difficult, because how do you have those conversations if they don't see through the same eyes you see through? So that's really hard. I just see over here, someone said, we looked at the listing that had a picture of a dog drinking out of the toilet, LOL. So you would think you would take your animals out during photos, but some people aren't willing to. Some people won't. My husband is a real estate photographer. So started in our town, there were none. And so he completely self-taught when I started doing real estate to do it all for me, got the license for the drone. I was the first person that offered any of that in my town, because he learned so he could do all my photos. Well, then other agents started hiring him because there was no one else to do it. And
you didn't have an exclusivity contract with him?
I don't care. Make my money. And so he will go to houses and he will have agents that to the last minute are not getting him the lockbox code. So he's like, I can't not go, but he'll be like at the house, like, I need the code. He has walked in the houses where agents have mixed up the time with their clients. And of course the agent says it's not it's their fault, or I told him that time and the client got it mixed up, or, so you don't know who it is. But he always goes, hello, I'm coming in. He was in a house the other day, got all through the house, got to the bedroom. There is a woman sleeping in the bed. And she's like, and he's like, oh my God, I'm the photographer. Cause he's a big scare. I mean, he used to be a cop. Like, he's an intimidating looking guy. And he's like, I'm the photographer. Cause he's a man in a woman's house in her bedroom at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. or whatever. And like, I've heard of appraisers where the realtor said, oh, the door's unlocked, just go in. And they walk in. This is Wyoming. We all have guns, And so the girl's like, oh, my realtor told me you came yesterday to do the photos. And he's like, showing, like, just so you know, on your phone, this is the time. I'm not the one that messed this up. So the lack of professionalism, I mean, there's houses he gets there and he's like, I don't think you want pictures today. There's stuff everywhere. And the agent didn't check to make sure the house was ready before they sent him over there, And so it's like, he then has to go back and he could be billing them. He's not, And so you either take him and give him these pictures. Sometimes the agent's like, oh, just take them. They told me to be ready. There's like ladders and paint buckets everywhere. So as a whole, there's just a lot of issues here. But also, like, sometimes people just go, oh, just take them. Can you Photoshop that out? Like one time someone wanted him to Photoshop out all the dog turds in the backyard. And this was the client. This isn't the agent. He's like, do you know how much that would cost me? Or cost you to pay me for my time. Pay someone to clean up the dog poop and then have me take the pictures, you know?
Yeah, also, what do you plan to do when people come to the property to spend several $100,000 on it? Are you expecting them to like close their eyes and nose?
As an agent, I can't tell you how many times we go in and we're literally dodging. It's not like, hey, the dog just went a couple times. They haven't cleaned it up for 3 years. And they're like, we need this written into the contract. And we want to go back days before closing to make sure this is cleaned up. Like, you're not even going to clean the dog poop out of your backyard before you list your $550,000 house. It is so common. So sometimes I know people say it's the agent. I hear people say, I can't believe their agent let them do that. Sometimes they're not listening to their agent and their agent's trying to. So that's really hard because sometimes you just have a client that will not do anything and they want top dollar.
Yeah, but if our agent pool was made up of agents like you, Emily, who have standards, who don't need the listing, right? You don't need Emily's House of Real Estate sign on the dog turd house. That's what I say to people. I say, you want me to use my well-earned professional reputation and put my sign in front of this. And then when they walk in, they see this thing that's fully nuts. I said, you realize that this whole arrangement we've made makes you fucking anonymous and me the face of your turd. I'm picky. Like, and I would say the same thing about you, agents. Like, do you expect me to represent, like Emily represents this and presents this to the market and is marketing this? And I think if we had less, but just the good ones, just the top 20%, I think what we would see happen in the real estate industry is a higher level of professionalism all around. And that client who is unwilling to do the activities that it takes to make a transaction happen would be forced to work with, and would not be, the good agents are not competing against the crappy agents for good listings. The crappy listings go to crappy agents or discount brokerages.
I think we see the not so good agents fall away in markets like this, because I think when you have a hot market, just like, because when interest rates are low, everybody has, everyone's buying that normally wouldn't buy, or selling and upgrading, right? So you have maybe your neighbor, maybe you do real estate part-time in your coworker, maybe your mom or dad or your brother. So during the kind of 2020 to 2024 period, everybody could get into real estate and kind of be relatively successful because so many people were buying and selling. There was so much volume. And now, and also, like, I've had people tell me, like my husband just had a friend who had a transaction, or a client from our wing truck who bought something and it was a really bad experience, but they felt like they had to use this realtor because it was a friend's girlfriend or something like that. And it was a horrible experience. Said didn't even want the house. At least this is a story I'm getting, but felt like they couldn't back out because they didn't want to take the commission away from the realtor. So they're kind of regretting this choice on this house they bought. And so,
I'm sorry, what? They felt like they had to go through with the purchase because they were afraid the agent wasn't going to make any money?
They didn't want to. This is the story I got. So it's somebody they know through connection. They were worried, like, back out and find another house. They knew the realtor was struggling. And so they didn't want to have her not make a commission. And so they were not happy. They were like, I think there's like a structural problem, but I felt bad to back out. So he had just bought this house and was like kind of regretting it, not excited. So this is really sad. But the point that I'm getting to is, when the market is good, people will just use whoever, because like any house will sell. And like 2023, anything that went on the market sold like that, whether it was advertised or not. Like you said in one of our calls, sold in one day. Well, it sold in a day because a dog could have sold it, right? It didn't sell in a day because you marketed it and did an excellent job as a realtor. It was just the market conditions. So now when the market is bad, you really do need an expert. And like that deal, that really probably could have been, if he still wanted the house, negotiated down to a better deal, or he could have backed out and found something else he was more comfortable with. So when the market is bad, I think is when good agents shine and all those fluff agents fall away, because even if your friend's coworker that you kind of know that you feel obligated to use has a license, but you really need someone who's really good, you're not going to just use them because you feel bad. The money makes, you need the expert, and you need, like, the money's more specific and it's harder.
Yeah.
So this is your time to shine.
I think, well, there's a question for you there, but I think realtors have done a really terrible job of proving their value to consumers. There is so much value the consumer doesn't understand. And you're right. They feel like the market's hot. I don't need to be I can just use cousin Jenny and not have an awkward Thanksgiving. Yeah, I don't feel that way. I feel like bad agents are bad agents and dangerous no matter what the market is. And yes, while they could get signatures on an offer that you're happy with, it's execution, it's aftercare, it's all the professionalism that the real agents have that the consumer's not getting. Oh, it frustrates the hell out of me.
But oh, you said something I was going to latch on to, but I can't even remember. I just
excited. Blood pressure too high.
On agents, I just think that, and I think you guys were saying this on a podcast. I think it was actually you. I don't know if it was you, Mark. I think it was your podcast though, with somebody on here or your stream, and talking about how most of the people that talk bad about agents are agents because we've worked with them. And so I get why the public hates agents. I get why we have the reputation that we have, because a good agent is so worth it. But when you have to go to class for 3 weeks and you can do it on the internet and there's no training, the real estate licensing class is only to pass the test. It is not to train you how to be an agent. That is your broker's job. And now we have all these brokerages like EXP, no offense, and all these big online distance brokerages where I don't know if they're training you or not, but like, I'm liable. Like, I have to train my agents, and if they screw up, I am vicariously liable for their activity. And so I am going to make sure they know what they're doing. So I don't know how these big brokerages that have hundreds and hundreds of distance agents are making sure to train them to do the right job. I don't know where the liability goes. I don't know.
I don't understand how mixing like an MLM structure and a lack of supervision with distant brokers is like good for consumers. I've been very critical of EXP about that. And I'm just very critical in general of the industry and of influencers. So influencers in media. So why do we think the not professional, maybe somebody who hasn't been very successful in their career, but they've watched any number of large programs or movies that show realtors out there taking a class, getting a license, and easily making money, big checks, we just make big checks. And they, we all talk about that, about how crazy that is. Well, there's a whole marketing machine out there producing these, and NAR's been signing them up because they have had a quantity over quality approach, because they've mostly cared about their lobbying power and their coffers. They have not cared about promoting and protecting this industry. NAR needs to go down, man. NAR needs to go down big time. And I see some comments here about the market, the tough times are going to cull the herd. It happens every time. But if this industry lets during the good times, all the interlopers come in and I think about my real estate license the way I think a doctor might think of theirs. I'm going to do good work on my patients, my clients every single time. And if Emily, you're in my town and I see you do something wrong, I'm going to call up the licensing authority and go, Emily's doing bad real estate over there. Emily's taking advantage of consumers or not following the law.
And they'll do nothing until the behavior will continue.
Right. And I have been experiencing, see, I'm a property manager. I'm not in NAR. I call shit out all goddamn day. And I'm not in violation of the state law or my trade association's code of ethics. But realtors, it's very common to hear this from realtors. Well, I can't talk about this or I'll lose my license. And I'll say, what the fuck do you mean you're going to lose your license? If you're going to say something that's going to lose your license, please don't say it. And they'll explain, well, in NAR, we have the code of ethics. I said, first of all, NAR can't take your license. So understand that. And the second is then they conflate this code of ethics where you all aren't to badmouth each other. We're not to go, well, Emily, she goes to this nightclub and she dances like a real thought over there. And I think she's dumb and her mom is stupid too, right? That's wrong. That would be in violation of NAR's code of ethics. But for a realtor to stand up and go, co-broke commission compensation is kind of effed and our industry isn't doing good by this, that is not in violation of NAR's code of ethics. I'm sure NAR hates it. I know NAR hates me, but yeah, NAR does smell like beef and cheese, like rotten beef and cheese that sexually harasses women. Ooh, I said it. Oh my God. They have a whole problem with their executives.
A derogatory comment about, so that's in the code of ethics for NAR. But what I always tell agents is, did you do it? So like I had a situation years ago, because I will say things, but I'll say them to your face. So I had an agent and we're fine. I mean, because I feel like I am what I am and I don't really care if you don't like me because I always have a reason for what I do. So like I had an agent who the transaction was going really poorly. Their client sucked. Later found out that client ended up going to jail for drug. I mean, there was a lot going on where the client was making irrational decisions, but they were on drugs. And so I had the seller, they had the buyer. This was many years ago. I did not like at all how the agent was handling the transaction. I said something. They messaged me and they're like, oh, you said this, this, and this. This is a violation. I said, did you do it? it's true. I would say it in a courtroom. So I didn't make up a story. I didn't say, I don't like you because your breast stinks. I said, you did this. This was wrong. You're not doing a good job. You did this. It was wrong. You're not doing a good job. And I would say it to your face too. There's nothing wrong with that. I didn't make up a lie. I didn't say, don't use him because yada, yada, yada. I stated something that actually happened, that I had documentation, text message, emails to prove that was accurate. So if NAR wanted to come at me for that, like, I'm not lying. They did it. I'm just repeating the story, and I would say it to their face in an in-person conversation, and I did. And so to me, that's fine. Do you think, I think NAR will be gone within the next 10 years. It's either going to get bought out, renamed. There is no way, with all the money they're paying out on the lawsuits, they're raising our fees. They're going to have to pay for those lawsuits, and more lawsuits are going to come. I don't think NAR can continue on. It will go bankrupt before I'm retired.
And the MLS is decoupling from NAR, which is part of this, the stranglehold. So yes, it all has to be, but it has to burn and be rebuilt by, in my estimation, the good agents, right? The good agents who are providing that, the ones who will survive, who are worth it. The economy, the cycle will take care of it. It's when it picks back up again. Have we rewritten the rules? Have we done, figured this out? And by the way, brokers, I'm a broker too. I just don't have any sales agents. I have property managers. Like, it is on us. Stop bringing on inexperienced agents. Now, if you bring on the inexperienced agent, it is your imperative to train them.
And even if you take an agent from another office, you still need to train them, because I had an agent come in once and I'm always like, okay, what do they know? What do they not know? And we go through the contracts. We do practice buy sells. We read through it, every word. I explain the whole thing. And then they go home and I say, reread this. Make sure you can explain every word to me, and then highlight what you don't remember, you don't understand. Come back and we'll go through it. And I had an agent who I got from another office. They had been an agent for a couple of years. Well, my broker said that I don't know what that means. My broker said, I'm never going to need that. And so don't worry about it. And I said, so what happens if you have an engineer who tend to be the most analytical people, and they go, because I've had clients, I have had 4-hour meetings where they want me to go through every piece of paperwork. It's not common. Most people don't. But you say, oh, you'll never need that. Don't worry about it. I don't know what it means, but how embarrassing would that be for you? But his broker had literally told him, you'll never need that. Don't worry about it. Huh?
Right.
It's in the contract.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I'm constantly making complaints against real estate agents, brokers in my area, because I report advertising violations. I report unlicensed professionals who are practicing, who are doing all this. And it's rife with it. It's rife with it.
So I want to comment on a comment over here. ICOB said Mark's being quiet about our comments on EXP. I'm not just saying EXP. I'm just saying these big brokerages where there's hundreds of agents and one broker, and you're never in the office together and you can't meet in person. I worry, because even when I take on agents, and like, I've had people be like, I want to operate in this town, but be under your license. And unless I know them and have trained them here first and then they move, I'm so worried about getting sued. And so I don't know how there's not more fear of liability in these huge models. It's not just that brokerage. It's just these remote brokerages. I don't know how you train, and I don't know how you supervise. That's my only comment. I'm not trying to throw that one under the bus.
Yeah. And the equivalent in my world is real estate, property management franchises. So there's various ones, there's a handful of them. And and they would, hopefully you're a broker and you can operate your own office, or you're like the new competitor in my town who is, so he's had a variety of different businesses, good guy, professional, but no real estate businesses, has owned a couple rentals himself. And I had lunch with him, because when you open up a real estate business near me, I take you out to lunch because I want to hear what's going on. And if I think you're doing a good job, I'll tell you, hey, I think you're doing a good job. And if I think you're not, I'm going to say, fucking shape up, or I'm going to report you, because you will not make a bad reputation for my business in this town. Can you imagine I would ever shirk back? So anyway, I said, why property management? Like, of all the businesses you have, what are you interested in? He's like, well, I'm not really interested in property management. I'm interested in owning a property management company. And I'm like, okay, you saw top 10 list of reoccurring revenue. Got it. Understood. Rocket. You don't think there's any work in this either. So you went and bought a franchise that has a broker that isn't even in this state, right? He's licensed in multiple states. And so, but the public doesn't understand that. And this person who is a licensee, they're a licensee, they hang onto that broker, they own the business. So what is that relationship like when the salesperson owns the entity and the broker works for them? How is that going to go as far as supervisory?
Not well, because I've seen that happen. Someone bought a brokerage. I don't think they had their 2 years. So they paid someone to be their responsible broker until they could. And when there were problems and I would go to the broker, they would go, well, what do you expect me to do? I'm getting paid by this person. How?
Straight to jail. Straight to jail. Throw away the key. Death penalty. We should institute the death penalty in real estate.
The crazy thing is really bad things are happening. And the state says, we can't take away their livelihood. And so the things that I have seen happen or I've heard about in classes happening and that they're still operating real estate and allowed to, and the lack of protection of the public is insane to me. It is just absolutely crazy. There is a point where you should not be allowed to have certain jobs after you have betrayed the trust to a certain extent.
Do you want to hear a story about betrayal of trust with property managers? That's actually really good and juicy. So in 2019, I had known this property manager in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. His name was Glenn. And I had known him for a long time, but we were involved in NARPM together and we were founding the Pennsylvania chapter. So for two property managers that own businesses a couple hours apart, we were actually in fairly regular phone and email contact. And in the middle of we're setting this stuff up, we've got all kinds of stuff going on. I get an email one day that is, I closed my property management company yesterday permanently and resigned my membership in this NARPM, the National Trade Association. And good luck to you all. And I was like, bro, what? Same as me, like 600-ish doors under management, about 15 employees. He was also running some HOA. So he had, I want to say like maybe 1,000 or 2,000 doors of HOA management. Like what gives, right? Couple things I knew about Glenn. He always bragged about being the only one in his company who touched the money and about being able to go into the back end of the software. He was like maybe an investor in Buildium. He was using Buildium. Anyway, he bragged about it. And I was like, I just was kind of like, you bug me. I don't want to talk to you any more than I have to, whatever. He also was not the broker of his company. So he owned his company. He was not the broker. The broker was a woman named Sue Helm. This was his second cousin, I think. It was a family member. This was in Harrisburg, where she had a Century 21 franchise. She called it Century 21 at the Helm. Very cute. That was her last name. But what do I think the reopening? Oh, I don't know. But Sue, sitting Pennsylvania state rep as well, while she's the broker for Lehman's company, Glenn's company, and while all this happened. So in the spring of 2019, so again, July 2019, he shuts it down. What had happened in the spring? I've pieced this together a bit. In the spring, she got slapped with lack of supervision at her sales office. So there was a complaint made, just what you're talking about. The agent was saying or doing something outside of the rules. The broker was disciplined and said, no, you must train and supervise these people. That is your responsibility. So she goes to Glenn at the property management company and goes, hey, open the book. Supervision time starts now. Government said so. He didn't open the books. Please open the books. He didn't open the books. She pulled her license. It came to that. It came to pulling the license. He had to shut down out of nowhere. And of course, there's no money. There's no money. There's no money. There's no security deposits. There's no owner funds. When that happened, and I figured out that happened, I panicked. I thought, that's it. Sitting fucking legislator steals constituents' money. No proper manager will ever be trusted again. like, why would you? Why would you? Anyway, it was all kept very quiet. Class action happened, insurance settled it, and it's all over now. And it never really made any kind of headlines. I did have a very long, extensive conversation with Glenn about a year ago on LinkedIn. Just about like me, basically, like I always said, if I had a chance in a dark alley, like what the fuck would I do to him? And it was the equivalent of that. Like, what gives, dude? What'd you do with the money? And he makes excuses there, but there's no, it's gone. It's gone. Yeah. And that's the thing that the public doesn't understand. I'm sitting on millions of other people's money, investors and tenants. And there is nothing stopping me besides it's wrong. Like I could when I changed banks, I just on those trust accounts, just 1.5 million to the new bank. Like nobody said, hey, can you really take that money? What's stopping me from cashing it all out and disappearing? Yeah.
Or
Nothing.
everybody thinks with any sort of financial scheme, I'll pay it back. I'll just take this and I'll pay every article you read about, someone here, I think, embezzled from our senior center. I mean, there's gradually things over the years that come out publicly, and it probably starts with a little bit and they think they'll pay it back and they don't get caught. And for years and years. So he gradually did that until the point that he had spent it all and was just waiting for new money to inject. And then he got caught with his pants down. Like people do that for so long. So there's probably, we had one here. It was, I'm not going to say too much because we're a small town and anybody will know if I say the specifics.
Oh,
but
that's between you and me.
Well, I am smart, and I did. My thing is when people tell me versus I saw it firsthand, I'm a little more careful.
It's a rumor.
But apparently somebody went to do an earnest money deposit because now we mostly use funds holders here, like the title companies. But used to be we would hold that earnest money for purchases. And somebody went to you cut the check to the broker puts it in their account. Then when we go to closing, we cut the check to the title company. Somebody went to and earnest money here is small. Like people are always appalled because no one has money here. They do no money down loans. Well, they have money, but they buy shit like RVs and boats and stuff. So they don't put a lot of money down. So earnest money is usually $500. Even like sometimes it's $1,000, but that's rare. And so $500 earnest money check from the brokerage to the title company bounces. It is a trust account, even though it's in the brokerage. It's someone else's money that you're holding money for somebody else. So that person had been misusing that trust account. Eventually they pay it back, whatever. Fine. You have to take a class, slap on the wrist. A broker is using trust account money and they get a slap on the wrist and continue to operate to this day.
And I've seen and heard the same things of people in my area as well from former employees. So I wouldn't name names, but payroll being taken. Because again, when I open up my bank accounts, there's like 6 bank accounts, right? 2 of those are trust, security deposit, that's the tenant funds, and owner funds, and what we call the operating or properties account. Then the rest is like my payroll account, my tax escrow, my operating funds, whatever. There's nothing stopping me. Like, and it's happened. We're like, my payroll account is less than I'd like it to be. That $15,000 bill comes every Tuesday. Like I've had low cash flow times before. You cannot take it from that, but it's too easy. And I'll tell you, at least in Pennsylvania, which is the only state I have experience with the inspection process in, they're not looking. That is one of my missions. I want a property manager license in Pennsylvania, and I want required trust account reporting that are triple tie out, which is like a term for the kind of trust accounting we do, triple tie out verified at least quarterly to the state, which would put the bad people running this off of Excel and paper ledgers and don't know how to keep their books clean out. If you can't triple tie out and you don't know what that means, get out of third-party property management right now, because you don't understand that you're a custodian for other people's money. And you at that brokerage, you've got, say you were doing, you had 20 transactions in escrow right now, and they each had $1,000 earnest money. Be generous, and you're at 2,000. You had a couple high rollers that month, right? So you're sitting on 40K in trust. I'm sitting on 1.5 million every freaking day. Every day. And that's very complicated, right? The security deposit account's easy to look and verify. The operations account, every rent check comes in, every utility reimbursement, every utility bill, every owner payment. It's hundreds of transactions a month. And it's a lot. And our industry, property managers, to the point of how do we find a better one? You work hard at it and I'll work hard at beating up the bad ones. How about that? I'll just take out the knees of the bad ones, and then you look for the ones that don't limp. That's my plan here on Christmas 2025. You can cut that for a short, Mark, if you want.
Yeah, I will. I definitely will. But this is my show, damn it. Let's hold on. Let's get to some of the No, I don't. This is great. Everyone's loving it. But I do want to get to some of the questions here, though, just so we don't skip them all. But Flavio is asking Emily, have you paid for some repairs out of pocket to sell a property?
I've had deals where I did not make money because I paid for so much. And the reason for that is sometimes it's a little, so if you're an a-hole, I'm not going to save a deal, but sometimes my client is the a-hole and my client is completely in the wrong and I feel for the other party. And so it's going to fall apart over something. And And so, yes, I pay almost every transaction. I pay for something. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big. Sometimes it's a little lady who literally is going to go into foreclosure. She just has to get out of a house in a rural area to be more in town or whatever. So like if you make bad financial decisions and that's why you're where you're at, but you make a ton of money and you have a bunch of fancy stuff, I don't really feel bad for you. But if you had, so my husband used to be a state trooper, and state troopers are notoriously horribly paid in the state of Wyoming, and they don't keep up with inflation, and it's really just BS. And so there have been many police and law enforcement who don't have the equity in their home to pay a realtor when they sell it. So for my husband's friends, I have sold houses where they paid the other agent, but I didn't get paid. And so it just kind of depends if it's, you know, did you dig your hole, or are you just in a situation that's not really your own fault? So, or I've paid for repairs, or I've done the repairs myself because I'm a contractor, or I've had to secretly send a cleaner in because the seller thinks their house is clean and they're too offended to understand that the buyer wants cleaning before closing. So I've had to sneak cleaners in either after my sellers leave or before my buyers go in, or, you know, cleaning's the easiest one, but I used to get people closing gifts, and then I would be paying for a lot of stuff at the end. And now I'm like, I don't do the closing gifts because I know I'm be forking out money. And then if I don't fork out money, then I'll do the closing gift. But yeah, I fork out a lot of money all the time to make things come together.
I would never make money in real estate. I would say no too much. I would say no before we even got into business. Cause I've thought of that. I've thought of like, if I sold houses, right? But I don't want to because I find it so difficult. Like if Mark's my client and the outcomes I get for Mark are dependent on the services that the agent on the other side of the transaction is doing, I fear, like you, I'm going to become like the kid who does the group project for all the kids in the class. Like I'm always the one who did the whole project because I was like, I cared the most. So I never messed with it. And if I ever thought about selling, I've always said it would be off MLS. I would open up a brokerage, not need MLS, just do investor properties and just list and do a whole different pricing structure. Why has no real estate agent said, I'll do flat fee? I'll do a different way besides a percentage of the sales price. Why has nobody said, I'll just charge a different calculation and
There's
just
some-
be unique?
So there are in my area, and I'm sure this is everywhere. So there are a lot of discount brokerages. So there's people out of like California who have Wyoming licenses where you got to get your own picture. They're just putting it in the MLS for you for a fee. They call you to show it. They don't do anything. They don't negotiate. I've never actually had a transaction all the way with one. So I don't know if they maybe just put it in the paperwork at the end, but you literally communicate all the way through with the seller. I've had people get a hold of me for photos or my husband for photos because they're using a discount brokerage. They have to get all their own stuff. For me, I provide a service where I provide a lot. And so I would not do like a discount rate because every listing is an advertisement for what you get from me as an agent. That's kind of my perspective. And so if I do a discount model for this person or a flat fee, then they're gonna be like, oh, those are really shitty pictures, or that's a really, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, I want everyone to know you get professional photo, you get professional video, you get ads regularly. Like, and why is that one not being marketed? You know, so
discount. I understand that, but what about a full service brokerage who just does it not on a percentage of the final sale price? Like I'm a full service brokerage. Like, okay, let's use a buyer example. So, you know, because there's all this talk about, you know, how the buyer's agent's going to get paid. So I think if I was going to do a brokerage, I would do Jen's House of Buyers, right? And you would pay me a flat fee. And I'll just throw out some examples because I'm not really in the business, but you pay me $1,000 to take my buyer education course to get introduced to these lenders and make sure we get you to a pre-approval. And that comes with 5 showings, 2 offers, and 1 contract negotiated the whole way through. Well, maybe you're going to need more showings. Maybe you're going to put in more offers. Well, I do those on a per whatever basis. You want me to attend the inspection? It's this. And I can put together the premium package that's unlimited. Hey, pay me $5,000. We'll never talk about anything until you're in your house. You're done. Or we can do this discount stuff where like I do a set and then I keep getting paid if you keep needing services. I just want, why hasn't anybody gone, I'm just going to take a crack at this. I'm just going to take a crack at being different.
So when you get paid when you close, everything's in the contract, and at least it comes from the title company. If you said like, hey, I'm going to charge you this much for this many showings. So just an example, like on the selling side, when I do like a market analysis or a broker price opinion, I used to just do them for free for people, because it's like, I'll do it and you list the house with me. Well, you do it and they're not actually selling the house. They just want to refinance or whatever, And so now I say, I'm charging you for a broker price opinion. If you sell the house with me, on the bottom, it says, I will credit this back out of your commission if you sell the house with me. There was a point where someone I found out was like, well, I won't do it, but Emily will do those. So list the house with me. She'll do your broker price opinion and then come back and list the house with me. So I charge for them now. So I had a lady, and now I will not give it to somebody until I get the money. The last 3 of those I did, the people did not, I sent them the invoice and they didn't pay. Can I put a lien on their house for $250 or $350 or whatever? Sure. But then I have to keep reapplying it every so often and yada, yada, yada. So I had somebody who just wanted it to refinance, or to get their PMI off. Never paid me. I had somebody who did it, never paid me, listed with another agent. Could I have got a hold of the title company and said, give me my $250? But for the energy for it, you know what I'm saying? So like, there are people that aren't going to pay for services. They're going to look at the houses. Are you going to take them to court for that $1,000 or $5,000 they didn't pay you for your services? No, because, well, maybe, but it's going to cost, every time I meet with an attorney, they say it's going to cost you more to pay me than the money you're going to get. And then if they move, say you get a judgment in Wyoming, they didn't buy a house, they moved to Colorado, you now have to get a Colorado attorney to get a Colorado judgment, and then they move to New Mexico. Then you're going to get a New Mexico judgment, and so you're going to pay tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees for your $1,000, your $1,500. So people are shit, and people that don't keep their word are not going to keep their word, and you're just chasing them around. So I think the thing is, you just wouldn't actually get paid.
You think, but again, girl, I get paid all the time, and I feel like I would, but it would mean I have to get the payment in advance.
Yeah.
And that restricts who I'm able to work with, because the consumer does not believe that we should ever actually, from consumer to realtor, hand money. We think this is all just happens on sheets and those big checks, and it's a weird hour and everybody leaves happy. And we've just really decoupled, kind of like doctors are decoupled from the finances. Try to ask how much something costs of a doctor. They're like, whoa, 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 disgusting. I don't talk about that, right? It's the only other industry where compensation and the service is decoupled. It's buyers in real estate transactions, and then patients in healthcare, because with insurance, right, is what I'm talking about. So it means the consumer isn't well served.
And I think the hard thing too is there's such a distrust for realtors. And I think of this a lot now with all the NAR stuff, with now we have to give them the disclosures before we show properties. And so I show up at a property because people are always like, meet with them in your office and do a consultation first. Most people don't want to do that. They want to see the house because they're afraid it's going to go off the market. So now I, to my listing, have to bring paperwork with me. Now, I don't have to give them a representation agreement. I have to give them a disclosure before I can show them a house that says, if you don't sign a representation agreement with me, this just shows that I'm not representing you until you sign a representation agreement with me. But it's a brokerage disclosure and like a 1-page document. So I'm giving you 4 pages of documents to sign before I'm technically supposed to even let you in the house. And it's winter and we're outside and it's 20 degrees, or maybe it's negative 20 depending on the day. And you don't trust realtors because they have a bad public opinion. And you just met me and I'm like, this doesn't mean I'm representing you, but sign this. Like, it's such a bad model and it's so uncomfortable. And I've heard of agents saying, well, I send it to them before. So as a consumer, I'm going to go to meet somebody for the first time and I have to sign something and I don't even know if I like you. Like, I hate that they've done that, because yes, it's a disclosure, but they might not trust that it's a disclosure. And I have heard of agents actually tricking people and giving them, saying, I have to have a representation agreement before we can see anything. So a lot of agents are making people sign a representation agreement before even seeing one house. And then they hate that realtor and they're stuck, or they're breaching their contract. Like, it's such an ugly scenario, but there's so much distrust. Like, I would be super uncomfortable to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to pay you up front. I don't even know you. Like, if you have the relationship, yes, but how do you build that relationship before you start? Like, the whole model is,
I don't know, go to property manager school, lawyer school, accountant school, anybody else who sells professional services for large ticket money. And that's the problem, right? We've normalized in real estate. Oh, I want to see this house. I'm so excited. It came on the market. Call up Emily. Oh, I got to get in there right away. When in truth, You're setting up to be serving me in a complicated financial transaction with a big money on the line. Why are we setting these up with like, oh, I'll just meet you there? I'm sorry. Real estate agents have been lazy for too long. And if that means we need to re-educate all the consumers about what's needed, well then sorry. That's what we need to do. And this speech I'm giving about how I want property managers to stand up and be a voice I can't stop real estate influencers and I can't stop real estate agents from oversimplifying, pushing transactions, selling the impossible dream. I can't stop it, but I can add a reasonable, credible voice to the discussion for the consumer to see. And that is what's so frustrating for me as a property manager. Like, why am I the only property manager out on these live streams talking about this? Why am I the only one out there going, you're right, lots of property managers suck and I'm going to do something about it, right? Because you're right. People are right when they complain about the industry. There's a lot of room to grow if we're looking optimistic.
People are also used to realtors working for from the sell side, working for free, and people don't care and people don't get it. Like I had a lady get a hold of me several years ago and she wanted to get her license and she's like, what's your base pay? How much do you pay agents? And I was like, nothing. You make $0 unless you sell something. Like it's all commission based. She's like, oh, I don't want to do that. And I was like, yeah, me neither. Like she fully thought if she came to my agent, I was going to pay her just to have her license. And then people don't know. And so people will look at 18 houses with you and go buy something with somebody else and they don't care. And people are so used to realtors working for free. And I personally don't think that will ever change because if I don't do it, somebody else will. Yes, because it's a race to the bottom. There are some people that want the best person. But like, for instance, I know we can't talk about commission because it's negotiable and price fixing. The commissions that are the most common commissions you see in the market here are not the commissions that you would think in another city, because many, many years ago, another broker started lowering down to try to get all the business. And so now you do not see I do not get paid. You would think for the volume I do versus if I went and worked in Cheyenne, Wyoming, or if I went to when I see referral checks and stuff, it's lower here because they race to the bottom. And now I'll see agents, people are like, oh, this agent said they'll do it for this. Will you do it for this? And I just say no. And some people want the best service, so they'll go with the better agent. But most people, and then they'll come back and say, my transaction was so bad. My realtor did this, this, and this. And I'm like, that's because you wanted a discount. What did you expect?
Mm-hmm.
But here, if I don't do it, somebody else will. So again, I won't go lower than what I charge.
Tried, Emily?
What?
Because I have the same problem.
What did you say?
I said, well, have you ever tried to raise your commission rate, whatever you negotiate, despite what others are doing? And I know there's a lot of pressure, but I'm the girl. I mean, I know we're not supposed I charge 11. It's on my website. I charge 11% management fee, half month's rent to lease it, 20% of 1 month's rent to renew the lease. I put it all out there. That is a higher percentage than anyone else in my market is charging. And they're dancing in the 8 to 10s. Mm-hmm. So if you call me and say, gosh, you're the most expensive, I'm going to go, you're damn right I am. And they're going to go, well, why? What justifies that? And I say, I'm going to give you a lot of justification, but the bottom line is I am so much better than them. It is beneath my dignity. And I am the largest. So put 2 and 2 together. They're tiny and charge less than me. And I'm the biggest and have this reputation. This is what the market has found. And I have this duration with my clients, whatever. I just wonder because the market, you're right. In general, the way you're talking, the race to the bottom and compete on price. But when one person stands out and doesn't, I think it begs the question. Now, maybe that can't be the only thing that's different about you. It has to be something else you can pull out, your marketing stats. I mean, whatever. But, for you, you're an investor. What's different to me is she's getting high on her own supply. So when she tells me that drug or that property's good, right? I call it getting high on my own supply because I'm an idiot, but but I'm going to trust your knowledge. Like Emily, you're one of the ones who needs to stand up, right? You're doing the thing. You're on the live feeds. You're creating content. You're talking about the real world out there, which isn't sexy. It doesn't get likes. It doesn't make people excited to work hard and make money and, just keep working hard. That's not sexy, but we have to. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in what's going on. I think this down market is going to put a lot of pressure on operators. So people who are holding and need to operate, I think that's happening. The great generational wealth transfer. Do you all talk about that in real estate brokerage? The great real estate wealth transfer is happening. So our boomers are dying and leaving their property to their Gen Xers and their millennials and maybe even some Zs. And that just means there's transition and new people in charge. So new decisions, new future outlooks, new kind of processes. AI, we're going to have a drive to authenticity. Influencers aren't going to be influencing like the way they have been. And then what was the other thing? Oh, all the negative attention our real estate industry has gotten, all the regulation that's being posed because of housing affordability. Housing is infrastructure. This is a political issue. If the way we transact these assets or we manage these assets is conspiring against consumers, it's bad. So anyway, yes, you're doing the right thing, but I would say raise your prices and try to justify it and see what happens.
So
But you
I
don't
feel
think it
like,
would work?
well, so I feel like as somebody who invests in real estate, because I always think about how I, as the consumer, would respond to things. And I also think about what is fair. So just because you, and I know people like make as much as you can, I think there's a point where it's also like, there's times where like I've bid things around property management where like when we used to do it, we could get a percentage of the repair. And I'm like, I'm not charging them that much because that's not even reasonable because I didn't do that much to coordinate this repair or whatever.
Right.
So for me, like, I'm not saying like, don't try to make money and stuff like that, of course, but there's a point where I feel like it's a little unreasonable. So I'm going to start this conversation by saying commission rates are negotiable and any broker can charge any commission and you can talk about what you charge to the public, but we're not price fixing or saying this is what you could charge. That's my little thing. Okay. So there are rates that I, as a consumer, would be like, screw you, I'm not paying that. So I do feel like everyone always thinks when you sell a house, you pay 6%, right? Well, that's what the public always says. Or like I heard someone the other day say, in this state, they charge 9%. If you told me you were going to charge me 9% to sell my house, I would tell you to suck a fat one. Like that's insane. And like, so like when you say 11% for property management, because I know you know your stuff and I know property management sucks and I know it's a long game, I would pay that for property management. But for a sale of a transaction at a certain percentage, like if I sell a $500,000 house and I pay 6% commission and the market's hot and it's going to sell regardless, I don't want to pay that. So if I charge, so for instance, when I list a house here, I would charge, well, it depends. So if it's a really expensive house or like a really cheap house, I would do a flat fee because I'm not going to make less than a certain amount of money. But if I charge you 4% or 4.5% or 5%, honestly, I'm comfortable with that for the amount of work I do. Now, when I see someone say, well, this agent said they would do it for 3%, will you? I will say no, because I have a videographer, photographer, you know, we're doing all this stuff. So, but for me, some of these numbers, like if I was to sell a house and I had to pay that, I wouldn't. There's just no way I would pay it. And I don't think that it's appropriate for a realtor to get paid that much for what they're doing. I just don't. So I think what I get and what we have in our market, I honestly think it's fair because I think some percentages are way too high for the amount of work your realtor is doing. Like you're just not doing that much work. Like you're doing a shit ton of work in perpetuity as a manager. But for a sell transaction, I am not a plastic surgeon. It is not that hard. Yes, I'm doing a good job, but there's an amount that like, I don't think it's fair to charge more. I just don't think it is for a sell transaction. I don't. But the point is people think you're making all this money. You're not necessarily, depending on your market.
Yeah. It's very complicated out there. I don't know how consumers are even staying on top of it. Because I'm in it. I'm listening to all the commentary and reading the articles and reading the studies and the people who are trying to hold the industry accountable. And I know, and I'll just say from experience that you talked about getting the paperwork signed before you can show the house. There was a house that came on the market. My parents are trying to buy a place here in our town. They live in their camper, their carnies. They're probably watching because they love YouTube. So anyway, there was a house and I was like, well, shoot, I'm not in the MLS. Like, and I don't want to call and get the code and like all this stuff, but we'll use this agent that I know and like if you buy this house. So I called up the agent and the agent's like, all right, I'm gonna have to get him to sign the agreement, for the house. I'm like, totally cool. Mom freaked. She freaked at having to sign a piece of paper. But that is because that agent should have said, hey, listen, would love to work with you. Would love to. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to work with me and you're going to use my services, I'm going to need to have a conversation and put something in paper because the money that's going to transact is going to be huge. And And they're not willing to put that down because they're afraid you're going to call the next one and they'll do it without. And until the industry holds everybody, well, to even just the settlement. Did you know there was the Consumer Something Institute? Wendy Gilch is a fellow there. Anyway, she called 281 brokers across the country this fall, pretending to be a buyer, top agents, very active agents like yourself doing transactions. The majority broke the settlement in the way they discussed commissions with these prospects.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
It makes me nuts. But
And
how do you get millions of unprofessional, not really in the business people to change what they're doing?
Because there's no accountability. You make all these rules and the commissions have these rules. I'm not talking about NAR. I'm talking about your real estate commission that licenses you. They have all these rules. And every time when I report something or I hear somebody report something or we hear about really serious things, and they go, well, it's a really serious deal to take away someone's livelihood. It's a really serious, so like they don't take away licenses, but it's like you have a dude who literally stole millions of dollars from people. And it's like, so we're not like, isn't the point of a regulation of the industry to protect the public, but they're worried about taking away somebody's livelihood, so.
Girl, I would freak out in public if somebody had the balls to say that it was a lot to take away somebody's livelihood. It's a lot for the state to issue a license for a profession to protect consumers and then refuse to do it because they don't have the stones to tell somebody to knock it off. And this isn't $100 detriment to people. This is their housing where they live and keep their human bodies safe from the elements.
Most expensive thing they will ever buy.
It's all the money and all the see.
But
this is why we need the death penalty. Mark, where are you on getting the death penalty in real estate again?
Until the real estate commission has consequences, agents will never behave better.
That's right.
And true. Mark, where are you on the death penalty in real estate?
I agree. No, I agree. But I'm actually just goofing around right now. Everyone says I'm not necessary on this live stream today. You guys are doing a great job. So this is the easiest live stream ever for me. So
Jen and Emily hot takes rants of the holidays. I'm getting a little sweaty. I've got a fan on me, but
people are loving it. But like I said, I don't want to take up all your guys' time on Christmas Eve. So if you have to go, just let me know. But I'm fine continuing. So
10 more minutes and then I got to go have lunch with my husband.
Sure.
Okay. Questions. Are there any questions we've neglected as we've been just ranting about? But I think people love it because everyone's had a horrible experience with a realtor or a property manager. So when people just go, you know what? Yes, that's happened to me. Or I understand. People want their realtors to be good. And here's the deal. There are amazing realtors. You are, again, I have not found great experience with property managers. You are a great property manager. Everybody wants this. It's just not the experience they have. And so if somebody wants to come in and do an excellent job, you could kill it in your market. Like when I start, I've talked a little bit, not on this one, but about considering investing in other markets. And that's why I'm so afraid, because I know my market and I can control everything so well here. But it's so scary to put your money and your financial future in the hands of somebody who is not going to do a good job. People want someone they can trust to guide them through the process. It's just that there's 3 agents in every market and maybe one property manager in every state that's going to do a good job, and good luck finding them. So people want it. We just all have had bad experiences with bad people. Okay. Sorry, Mark.
Josh Burdick is an apologist. He's trying to save their lives. He says, we're just going to cattle prod them. And I think, Josh, that's cowardly.
Televised
cattle prodding.
It would be like, any attention's good attention. Here's my Insta handle.
Yeah, they get cattle prodded with their Insta handle on there, like they're trying to make it sexy, like ow.
Well, and then like you watch these shows, and I know some of the people have licenses and some don't, and some of them are actually doing real estate. And I do feel like some people just use these big TV realtors because some of them are actually doing business. But the way they act, and I'm like, I would never do business with that person ever, It's just crazy. You're okay with that being your reputation. But anyway, I digress.
The real estate running man. Oh, yeah, let's do a realtor Hunger Games. It's not the death penalty, but it is a game. No,
All right,
there do
I
have to be
figured out how to get my
consequences.
questions in here then. So is no plan worse than a bad plan?
What do you say, Emily?
I don't know. Like, because some plans are really bad. Like, because you're still going
Right.
to do it if you don't have a plan. Like, sometimes people come to me with business ideas, like, especially like young people in our community. And then I'm like, okay, here's what this, and this costs. Just basically don't do it. It won't make, because we're a small community. There's businesses that just won't work. And, but if you don't have a plan and you still do it, you're still going to fail your business, you know? So I don't really know how to answer that. Does anyone else have a better?
I have a take, and that is that no plan is worse than a bad plan. Because if you have a bad plan, that indicates you've at least thought through it, considered the facts of the matter, the parameters, your goal. And although you don't have a good plan, hopefully because you have a plan and you have a goal in mind, you'll see yourself going off track with that plan and reorient. Where in the no plan scenario, the no plan comes from lack of confidence or lack of knowledge, sometimes usually a mix of both. And that's where you stall out. And that was when, before you got on the call, Emily, and we were kind of talking about planning and the value of it before closing when you're going to buy a new investment. And yeah, there's just a stall. Like after the closing, after all that momentum, after all those people who are waiting to get their big check for your closing appointment, there's a lot of people keeping you that train on the track up until closing day. And if you don't have a plan and you're on your own and you leave that closing office and you go home, there's nobody there saying, all right, well, tomorrow at 10 a.m. or I just need these 3 more things. You feel like you've done the job. And I would say no plan is worse because you just don't even understand how to make a plan. It maybe is. So that's where I come down on it.
Dion said the unnamed arrow never misses.
Nailing it. Nailing it.
Whatever it was, got it.
Top of my game.
I'm not sure what Frank is trying to say. So just to remind everyone, Old Guy REI is still having his accountability call tonight, even though it's Christmas Eve. So it's 4 p.m. Pacific time. He'll still be going on his regular Wednesday call if anyone wants to join. He says realtor speed dating.
You need
Sure.
you need that what is that? The real estate professional exemption on your tax return, old guy? What are you looking for here, Frank? or old guy? We were talking about Frank. What are we talking about, old guy? What do you need? What are you looking for?
So you can find a realtor. So quick interviews. I think that's what he's saying. So there's a bunch of realtors in a room, and then you go through and pick who you want to work with. That's, I think, the concept, but to find a realtor.
Hyder is agreeing with Jen. It's easier to pivot from a bad plan than create a plan on the fly in most cases. Yeah. What is the fastest way a lack of planning shows up? Would it be cash flow, tenants, or maintenance, Jen?
Maintenance is so evident so fast if you're not.
It is, but we've all seen buildings with a ton of deferred maintenance continue to perform over time too, which is like this really inexplicable thing. Where does it show up most? I would say, I'm not going to give you that answer. I'm going to show it this way. I'm going to say, when I make those stabilization plans, it says, I'm going to do these 10 things and I'm going to get these results. And this is when I'm off that plan. Hey, I didn't get that renewal I was expecting, or I haven't leased that vacant unit, or I haven't gotten the codes license, or I haven't renovated that unit. Like I set a plan, I set a timetable. I know I'm off the plan and listen, it might show up in your pocketbook. I would argue if you're learning that there's something wrong in your checkbook, you're really late to the party. You're really late to the information party. So yeah, that's it. Where are you going to lose the most? Vacancy every time. Now that's driven by maintenance and operations. It's kind of like one of those end results, but that's where you'll lose your shirt quietly because vacant units are quiet. They don't bug you.
Yep.
All right, I want to wrap this up then with one final question. It's not showing up here, but it's from Emily's channel. Flavio's there, but it says, Emily and Jen, have you fired some clients? I guess he's asking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like to say I'm not proud, but I'm really proud.
Do you want to tell any of your client fire stories, or can you?
Oh yeah, because I don't care. I might not use names. The worst one I had to lay off 3 people. Actually, take that back. I had to lay off 2, and
Okay.
one left, just natural attrition, and I didn't replace them. Out of my At that time it was an 18-person team, and they were an over 100-door owner. They had been with me for over 11 years, a legacy client. When it was just me and an assistant, I signed these people. And what happened, they were always tough to manage. They were older. They were difficult personalities, but I can take abuse. I can. We had a working relationship that worked. As I grew and they were reporting to my team members, the tension grew. Then dementia set in.
Oh.
And yep. And then their behavior changed. And I worked with it for a long time. If there's a kryptonite, I don't like dead things and I don't like old people. Like I get really creeped out by dead things, and old people I just respect a lot. Like I will do anything for them to make them happy. That's just how I am. And so I found it really difficult. And it was until I had problems on my team, my senior leadership team were like showing emotional difficulty and distress around this. And I went, oh, this has gone way too far. And I had to do the hard thing. I mean, this was like over 10 years. These were friends, right? She kept saying, how can you do this to me? It was that kind of a thing. And I get it. And they sold all the properties and all of that as a result, but I did have to terminate that. But there's little cases. That's my big one, that I lost staff. It was awful. It was a really bad time.
I think old guy Frank, when you said old people, he said, "Oh crap."
What you looking for, old guy? A date? A real? No, not. Maybe a local board could do that. Maybe a local board could do. Tell us about how you fired some people, Emily. What did they do to get? Because you're pretty nice. You're a nice lady.
Yeah, it takes a while. But I think that I'm trying to think. So property management was easy. When we did property management, a lot of times it would be a conversation at the beginning of the things that would need to be done to your property for us to take it on. And people that had neglected properties for so long and they still cash flow and they're just running these houses into the ground. And we would say, okay, if you don't do these are the things that we would need to do just to even take your property on. And then these are the things we recommend in the next 1 year, the next couple years, these are the things coming. And they wouldn't even do the health, safety, and welfare items of the property, like not even going to happen, right? Or, with property management, when we did that, my husband actually I handled some of it. I did a lot of the maintenance because I'm a contractor, but he was the main point of contact. And my husband used to be a cop. And so he has been, he can deal with like abuse and escalation and just like he's just chill, right? But like there was this one guy, and we actually didn't fire him. He was an alcoholic, and he would call my husband there was a point in the day he would call and like berate him. And then the next morning he'd call and apologize like every day. Because
don't we all have one of those berater, apologizer cycle people?
Yeah.
Oh, we've had several. They drink, but they know they did it.
Yeah. He had got this property from another manager and it had been neglected for years. And I think what was happening is the manager was saying repairs were being made that weren't being made. So we came in and we're like, these things need to be done. And he was like, I haven't spent money on this place in this many years. And now you're charging me this much. And it's like, yeah, because you haven't spent money on this place in this many years. And so he got the brunt of a lot of it, and he just doesn't care. Like he doesn't emotionally react to things at all. He just doesn't care. But for me in real estate, I've had a couple clients where it's just like more like, if you're not going to let me show your house, like I would track how many showing requests we had and how many were declined. And I can't show your property if you say no 60% of the time to showings. So stuff like that, things where people are mostly older.
What if you find them every time they decline a showing? Like, hey, in this package, if you want to decline showings, you pay this fee every time you do. I'm interested in a new way of pricing real estate.
Yeah, this person would not have paid anything. I mean, they were just a really irresponsible client. And then people that berate you as a client, sometimes you say, okay, you will not speak to me this way. This will not happen again. Let's move forward. Or sometimes you go, okay, we're done. I can't help you. This is not a good fit. Mostly like when I've had representations with client representation agreements and I respond to them very quickly. I mean, I'm always very timely, but people have lives and things happen. I once had someone get a hold of me for a showing. I called them back 12 or 15 minutes later because I was with a client, and they had already got a hold of another agent. So they're like, well, we're going to go look at this house. We don't want to miss out on it, but we really want to work with you. And I said, you don't get to. We're done. So just stick with that agent, because I have bent over, hand over, back bends. I show you things on Saturdays. I show you things on Sunday. I show you things on your schedule because you're both shift work nurses, and you don't have the respect to wait 15 minutes for me to call you back when I've called you back and I had a representation agreement I could have held them to. And I said, I do not want to work with you. So just stuff like that, but usually when people berate you, you're already under contract. It's at the end. Like, I've had older people who I think might have maybe some failing, the way they talk to you and scream at you is like, are you all the way there? Or do you just think it's okay to talk to people this way? I don't know. But usually that's like right before closing or towards the end. And it's like, yeah, we just got to finish, and I wouldn't help them again.
There's a notice going out on a building next week in my portfolio that will be terminating because of disrespect. And in this case, the investor's lack of involvement. They purchased the property several years ago and have yet to be there to see it personally. And that might fly for some managers in some markets. They're driving distance away, and they're extra critical. When we talked for 15 minutes about the cost of replacing smoke detector batteries, I went, oh, I need to get rid of you. Like, that's what the month-to-month agreement's for. And I just looked at my calendar. What's the day? Oh, I'll be done with you January 31st. Because in my world, I know I talk like, oh, if you piss me off, I just get rid of you. I have 15 full-time staff that I sell 8 hours of their skill and time and labor every single day. And if I let clients beat up on them or like if I give the leasing agent a listing and say, go rent it for $1,500, even though it's only worth $12, like, that is just destroying her confidence. And it's my job as the broker and the leader to set the standard, hold the line, call me a bitch. Don't call me back. If you fire us, you fired me, but never them. Like, I consider myself the barrier between like the nuttiness and the team. And they appreciate that. They're like, thank you. Every time we fire someone, I get a lot of, you're the best. I'm like, I know, I'm taking care of you.
No, you can only do it because you have that team. And so if someone's abusing your team, you can't continue to do it. And
you're right. It's a chicken and an egg. You got to get abused for several years until you figure out stuff where you can say no to things. And the first couple of years I was doing crazy stuff. I didn't like it. So we built up.
We had somebody once who, this is just another firing story. We changed all her locks, and it's in our leases. People, or in our management agreements, people just don't read stuff. And so then they're mad at you because they are adults who didn't read documents they signed. And like, you go over it, but people's eyes glaze over, especially if they're remote. And so we changed all the locks. We switched everything to smart key, so they're easy to rekey. But some old weird houses, you can't because they have casement lock, whatever. And so we rekeyed everything, and she lost her SHIT about the egregious expense of rekeying between tenants. And I was like, huh? And she proceeds to go, and like, there had been like ex-boyfriends and girlfriends who had come on and off the lease. And so who knows how, you change every time, obviously. I've rented that place out for 17 years before you guys became managers. Not once have I ever changed a lock. And it's a triplex. So 3 units had been on the same keys for 7. I was like, do you know how lucky you are that somebody didn't come in and rape a woman living in that house? Or the worst case, or murder somebody, or steal their TV, and you didn't change the locks between tenants? And she's berating us for the locksmith fee to change locks between tenants. Right. And then I had one person who, we're going to issue a statement for at the end of the year for your earnings and all that. If I claim this money, it's going to impact my Social Security or something like that. I'm like, so you haven't been claiming this? And she's like, how dare you send me this statement? I'm not reporting the income. And I said, okay, we're not going to be your manager anymore, but enraged, screaming at me because our accountant sent her a statement at the end of the year for her income taxes because she will not claim that income and hasn't been claiming it for 7 years or whatever. Like, bitch, that doesn't have anything to do with me. Like, fired.
Death again. Consumer Hunger Games, real estate Hunger Games. They fight against each other to the death. Bad client versus bad realtor. Lethal, capture the flag. Okay, I'm getting nowhere, but I'm going to keep workshopping this.
All right. I know you have a lunch to get to with your husband, you said, right? So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I thank you for doing this on a Christmas Eve. It's always fun having you on, and everyone be on the lookout for her episode with Michael Zuber. Michael Zuber interviewed her, so her episode should be coming out soon, I would think. But thanks for doing it. Emily, thanks for jumping on last minute. I'm glad you got to jump on. I'll see you Friday still. Is that?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Christmas Eve. Go follow Emily and Jen on YouTube and their social media pages. And everyone have a great Christmas. And I'll see you folks tomorrow.
Bye.